Rory's won, what, 6 Race to Dubai, Dom, right? I know that Colin Montgomery had 8 Orders of Merit. I'm just, out of curiosity, I'm wondering, did you, in your research, did you see who's won the most Orders of Merit all time? Is it Colin Montgomery, and is Rory within 2?
That I don't know. That is not something I looked up, but I'm going to find out right now.
Yeah. Anyways, it's one of those things that we're going to be looking into. I'm going to bring Dom back in earnest here in a second.
Montgomery won 8, Seve won 6.
So Rory is tied with Seve, and he's about to become second alone and only 1 from Montgomery. That's pretty incredibly impressive when you consider that the guy who's leading in Colin Montgomery played the vast majority of his golf on the then called European Tour. So, Dom, you heard me just mention I was going to bring you in earnest here because you went crazy going into graphics and going into thus the data that was built upon them because, and I'm not putting words in your mouth because of how remarkable this season is. So you mentioned to me while we were going to break that today's question of the day plays into all of this and any of it. So what direction would you like to go?
I'll just read the question of the day to start things off. The question of the day is, if Rory wins the Race to Dubai and the European team wins the Ryder Cup, does that put his season this year in 2025 as sort of a season that would surpass what Scottie Scheffler has done this year? Because ostensibly, Scottie's playing this week at the Pro Tour, and then he'll play in the Ryder Cup. He's basically done. He's not really going to play any more tournaments this year, whereas Rory will probably play in a handful more, plus the Ryder Cup, because the European Tour season just is a little bit longer, and it bookends up against the end of the PGA Tour season a little bit, as Rory has done for many of the several past years. Now, right now, 69%, Matt, are saying yes, this would make Rory's season better if he wins the Ryder Cup and he goes ahead and wins the Race to Dubai, which, again, I couldn't get a definitive answer on this, Matt, statistically, but I don't know how he doesn't win the Race to Dubai. He's got a huge lead right now with that victory, plus he's got a Masters win. The points that he accumulates doing that, I think if he finishes in the top 25 the BMW PGA Championship this week, I think it might be enough to, secure it. So I think it's a foregone conclusion a little bit on the Race to Dubai front. But all of that being said, what it got me thinking was not Rory versus Scottie's season, but more along the lines of, are we witnessing something really unique and different and special this year, having 2 players play not only at the top of their games, which they both are, but also winning these massively important events. So they're not just, they have 3 wins each and they're just sort of sprinkling around the PGA Tour season. We're talking about major championships in playoffs, home opens, huge events these guys are winning, the Players' Championship. So I'm not sure which graphic you want to look at first, Matt, but there's a lot to unpack here, and it's really interesting to just discuss. Because, again, I don't want to look at this as Rory versus Scottie. I want to look at it as, are we seeing something this year that we've never seen in the history of golf?
I don't have a problem going down that road, but in fairness to the question of the day, you deliberately went head-to-head with Scottie and Rory. And you said,
but the season, but the question of the day is speculative because the season isn't over.
All right,
yet.
but let's operate on that speculation. So, in terms of Andrew, do you have a graphic you can show me that shows the season of Scottie Scheffler and the season of Rory McIlroy to date? Because we're going head-to-head with these two and suggesting that if Rory, and when we say Rory wins the Ryder Cup, bear in mind we're talking about Rory's team winning the Ryder Cup, which is an important distinction. If we were going to nail that down even more, it might be a discussion of if Rory goes undefeated in the Ryder Cup and his team wins, or Rory has at least a winning record this year in the Ryder Cup and his team wins. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you could better define than a broad brush of saying if Rory wins the Ryder Cup. He's got 11 other people that he needs something from in order to pull off that. All right, so let's take a look at the 2 players side by side this season with the theory being floated out there in Dom's question that If Rory were to win the Ryder Cup, as it was phrased, then he would go on to win, say, the race to Dubai. I would even throw in this week's BMW PGA Championship, the flagship event of the DP World Tour. Would his season eclipse that of Scottie Scheffler's? So in 2025, in 19 events, Scottie Scheffler, first of all, in 2025, 19 events, Scottie Scheffler has 5 wins, 2 majors, in 16 top 10s. And that doesn't count, obviously, this week. He's playing this week. He's one of 10 United States Ryder Cup players that are teeing it up this week on the PGA Tour at the Pro Tour. Rory McIlroy in 2025. In 18 events, he has 4 wins in 1 major and 10 top 10s. All right, so let's concentrate on Rory just for a second. Let's take up Dominus theory. And again, I'm going to throw in the BMW PGA Championship to strengthen the position that the question is taking, which would be for Rory McIlroy, he would have 4 wins, the Masters, the BMW PGA Championship, a team win at the Ryder Cup, and a season-long win for the race to Dubai. And how would that, so instead of being 4 wins that he currently has, it would bump that up again. So, and Dom, just for clarity here, your Rory run that you're illustrating includes his Irish Open victory, even though it was on the DP World Tour.
Correct.
Okay. So,
because the Rory run includes events on both tours, because he truly is, which we can talk about later, a dual tour player.
And he lives over there now. They at the house at Wentworth outside of London, etc. So if I give him credit for winning this week at the BMW PGA Championship, he would go to 5 wins. Even if his team wins the Ryder Cup, that's not credited as an individual win. And the race to Dubai, again, is not credited as an individual win. Those are season-long accolades. So that would get us to a point where in 19 official events played, same as Scottie, he would have 5 wins. Scottie would have 5 wins. In Scottie, and that's assuming Scottie doesn't win this weekend at the Pro Tour. If we're giving Rory, handing all these cards out to Rory, we might do the same for Scottie, but I won't, just for the purpose of having this discussion. If they have the exact same official events played, individual stroke play events in 19, and Scottie has 5 wins, and Rory has 5 wins, and Scottie has 2 majors, and Rory has the Players and the Masters. And
the Ryder Cup, potentially.
Dom keeps reminding me of the Ryder Cup. I just explained, if you win the Ryder Cup, it's not an individual win. It's an accolade to the season that would go with the Race to Dubai banner as well, which I'm happy to throw in this conversation. I would take a look at that for me personally, and I realize that I'm in defiance now of the majority. But you had nearly 70% that said Rory would be judged to have had a better season. When you have 2 of the 4 majors in one season, to overcome someone that has won 2 of the 4 majors as compared to 1 of the 4, which is terribly impressive, but not as, there is no way that being a part of a winning Ryder Cup team and winning the Race to Dubai and having the same number of total individual stroke play wins and the exact same number of individual stroke play starts would equate to a better season on the part of Rory McIlroy. I'm sorry, rank and file. One opinion absolutely, desperately disagrees with you.
The only caveat I would throw in there, Matt, is that, again, just playing devil's advocate, Rory is going to play in a number of events, more events than Scottie before the end of the year.
Right.
So he'll play the Abu Dhabi event he normally plays. Sometimes he plays the Alfred Dunhill. He's going to play in the DP World Tour Championship. All of these things will take place before year's end.
Right.
So he could easily collect 1 or 2 or 3 more wins if
that's
his form
correct.
Continues, and that number could be 8 wins.
Yeah, but let's go back to you heard me mention Colin Montgomery and his 8 orders of merit. Colin Montgomery never won a major championship. He was asked one time, how many regular wins? First time I'd ever heard anybody ask this question. How many regular wins equate to a major? Right? And I'm not suggesting that just because it came from him, it's as if it was handed down by the golfing gods, but it gives us some relevant gauge from players. How many regular tour wins, no matter what tour event it is, or in this case, what tour it's on, how many of those regular tour wins equate to a major? Because that's a whole nother conversation if we started to say, well, yeah, but if he wins the Alfred Dunhill Links, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, is that really equivalent to a signature event now? Limited field with the best players in the world, but I'm going to put that question aside and ask the question to say how many regular tour wins equate to a major, and the answer from Colin Montgomery was 8. 8.
That's very specific.
This guy never won one. So I'm thinking that he's probably stared into the dancing embers in the fireplace and had this conversation, maybe smashed the glass against the wall. But, he's contemplated it. What's the equivalency?
So does that mean if you divide his wins by 8, that's how many majors he had?
What's his total wins? We saw it on the chart before. You don't need to pull it up, Andrew. I want to go back to this comparative chart that you have.
I don't think he was on that.
Colin wasn't?
No, not this one. Yeah. No, Andrew, he's looking for the dual one. No, I don't think he was.
No, I'm not looking for the dual. Andrew, you were doing right. I specifically said, Andrew, leave the comparative one up. I was asking you, Dom.
You're looking for Colin Montgomery? He's not on this list.
No, I know he's not on that list. I was asking how many wins on the European Tour Colin Montgomery has.
He has 31.
Okay, that you can divide by 8, and that's how many majors he feels like his wins were equivalent to. He's in the World Golf Hall of Fame.
He has 3.8 majors.
3.8, so just under 4 majors.
Solid.
In terms, he's trying to get a
gauge. I wonder what a 0.8 major looks like on TV.
I don't know.
There's a rain out.
Yeah. But I mean, in math we'd always round up. So say he's won the equivalent of 4 majors.
It's basically the Grand Slam.
Now, having said that, as I say that to you, there are people right now that are spitting out their coffee and their tea, and saying, you can't tell me that Colin Montgomery won the equivalent of 4 majors. That was his calculation that I was referencing, right? They're going to think it's a complete joke. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is not to denigrate Colin Montgomery's feeling about the value of a major against regular tour wins. It's to put the weight of a major on it. Because even as I'm saying that,
what's the weight of winning the Grand Slam, Matt? What's the value of that?
That didn't happen in 2025. He concluded it in 2025. In fact, he took a big, long, pregnant pause in between.
But there's got to be some extra weight on that. There's got to be extra weight on that.
No, it's great for his career. His race to Dubai's are great for his career. Being a part of another winning Ryder Cup team, they're all great for his career. They're all accolades, perhaps, in the season in which he accomplished it. But the career Grand Slam was not done this year. The only player that's had all 4 professional major championship trophies in his mantle at the same time is Tiger. And he didn't get the credit that he deserved for it because it didn't come in the same calendar year. Rory's is separated by more than a decade. So what I'm saying is, if I couldn't have been more liberal in how many wins I was giving Rory in the next few weeks, and if you want me to throw a couple more on top of that, I'm happy to do it. But even if I do that, you're going to get to 6, maybe 7 wins compared to 5 wins for Scottie Scheffler that included 2 majors. And those other wins cannot overcome 2 majors, even though Rory has won. That's what I'm saying. I just don't see where this is a discussion about Rory having had a better season. There's no measure of that. So what's the survey coming in at right now?
Your ranting and raving has made it much worse.
How so?
75% are now saying yes instead of 69%.
Are saying yes. What?
Derek says I disagree completely, Matt. These people are all saying Rory. If Rory's team wins the Ryder Cup, and he wins the race to Dubai and possibly more events, the people are saying that he had a better year than Scottie did.
No way. No way. Scottie won 2 majors. I'm just not buying it.
And
isn't Derek from Morocco?
He is. He says, disagree, Matt. Danny says, sorry, Matt. My view, Rory has had the better year with or without the Ryder Cup win, he says.
How could that be? He has literally less win right now. Oh, wait a minute. But your question gave him those other things, right? I just need to make sure.
What are you asking?
Read your question again.
What is confusing about this?
Because I believe that you gave Rory things he hasn't earned yet, and we're presuming that.
Yeah, I gave Rory the race to Dubai because he's going to get that. And I did definitively say if they win the Ryder Cup.
All right.
He's going to win the race to Dubai.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's statistically
I think it's locked down. I think you're right.
Set,
yeah.
But it's over. And he's going to win that. And he might win another tournament because he's probably playing in 4 more, maybe.
Right.
And considering how well he's playing, I would argue that all 3 of the 4 he'll finish in the top 10.
Go ahead, Andrew. Back up
to our
comparative.
At least to win 1 more.
Comparative charts again. All right. So you gave him the race to Dubai, and you basically gave him a team win at the Ryder Cup.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't do that. I said if they win the Ryder Cup.
Right.
Is that enough? That's the only question.
Yeah.
I didn't add any victories.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That what I'm getting at is he has one less victory than Scottie Scheffler, even with your convoluted.
Yeah, but you have people writing in. You're wearing U.S. tinted glasses, Matt. The pressure of Rory to win the Masters and the Grand Slam outweighs Scottie's majors. I'm just reading comments here.
Well, they're dead wrong. 4 wins against 5 wins, and 2 of Scottie's 5 wins are majors. I don't care what country they're from.
Okay, all right. I want to pivot a little bit.
All right, go ahead.
Andrew, can you go to the historic seasons graphic that I put together?
Historic seasons graphic.
Yes. Where I wanted to take this conversation, what I think is
you're the one that asked the question of the day.
Listen, where I wanted to take this is. I think we're all missing the point. I think the point is this may be.
How can you accuse us all of missing a point when we're reacting to your question?
Because you're making this about Rory versus Scottie.
You made it about Rory versus Scottie.
I was just asking a question of the day. That was not supposed to be a half an hour thing. Andrew, put the graphic back up. so what I'm trying to get across here is that everybody is missing the point. The point is, this may be one of the greatest seasons of golf that we've ever seen in our lifetime, full stop. If you look at these are the only, if I went back 25 years, and this is the best I could find in terms of having more than one player win more than one major. They both have majors, and they're both getting 4 or 5 wins or more. For huge gaps in time, Tiger was winning 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 events a year, and other guys were getting, 2 wins. There might be another guy that had 2 wins or 3 wins. It's not frequent, especially in the last 25 or 30 years, that you have multiple players on tour winning 4 or 5 times each.
Oh, okay. So let me see if I get this right. In 2005, Tiger Woods won 5 times. Tiger Woods won the Open. Tiger Woods won the Masters. Phil Mickelson won 4 times in the PGA Championship. So clearly, Phil Mickelson had a better season that year. I just want to make sure I've got the template criteria correct.
No, that's incorrect. Stay with me on planet Earth. Can we have a real discussion about this instead of yelling at me in the audience for being wrong about whatever is in your head?
You're the one that made up that stupid question.
No, I didn't do anything. I'm just doing my job. So 2014, 2016, you can see those graphics. I'll read them quickly for the radio audience. Matt just went over 2005. The next season is 2014-15. Jordan Spieth and Jason Day. They both won 5 times. They each won majors. Jordan won 2. In 2016-2017, Justin Thomas, Dustin Johnson, and Jordan Spieth all had multiple wins. Justin had 5 wins. He won the PGA. Dustin Johnson had 4 wins, and Jordan Spieth had 3 wins, and one of those was a major. Those were the only seasons, Matt, that I could find in the last 25 or 30 years where you had lots of, multiple players collecting piles of wins and major championships as part of that win.
Yeah.
And if you look at this year, you've got Rory and you've got Scottie doing the same thing, except I think the difference this year, Matt, which I mentioned early on, is that the wins that these guys are collecting are big-time blockbuster victories. Some of these wins in these historic seasons that are on your screen are sort of a traditional event. We're talking this year about guys winning Players, home open, signature events, every event's a massive event. Rory's other event was the Pebble. I mean, these are huge events that these guys are winning. So I just feel like the pressure of that and the quality of the wins and the quality of the fields, and Rory's collecting the Grand Slam and Scottie is having an all-time Tiger-like season. My argument, Matt, is that this is one of the better seasons we've had in the last 20 years on the PGA
Well,
Tour.
I definitely think that...
Or in golf.
I definitely think that there's a strong argument to be made that we are living through the midst of a modern golden age. And, we've had this discussion before that one of the ways that you can judge... There's different golden ages. Obviously, the period that I say when Giants roamed ran from... I'll define it roughly from 1962 to 1986. You can call that the era of Jack Nicklaus's major championships, but it also included the likes of, on the front end of that, he beat Arnold Palmer in a playoff at Oakmont to win the U.S. Open, his first major championship, all the way up to that improbable Masters championship in 1986 for Jack. But in between that, you had so many, and here's Jack Nicklaus with 18 major championships and 19 second-place finishes. He came in third another 9 times. And along the way, if you took that time frame and looked at proficiency and great play, you would have a massive percentage of players who eventually made their way into the World Golf Hall of Fame, right? That's the highest judgment of a player's career, is whether or not they've been enshrined forevermore. And so that period was definitive. There are other periods before that. The early days, from when you go from Francis Ouimet in 1913 winning the U.S. Open, and then in 1914 Walter Hagen wins his first major championship. The very young Gene Sarazen asserts himself only a few years later. That period, and very much defined ultimately, I believe, by Bobby Jones in the impregnable quadrilateral, the winning of the Grand Slam in 1930, was definitely, again, another golden age. And then the next golden age, while it's interrupted by the Second World War, was primarily defined by another triumvirate, and that was Ben Hogan and Sam Snead and Lord Byron. They weren't the only ones, but that was predominant. And then, of course, you had, from there, we go into that one that I'm defining by Jack Nicklaus's career. But again, it included Gary Player and included Arnold Palmer, and it included so many great players. I could keep going down the list. Ray Floyd, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So many multiple-time major champions, some of the toughest individuals that the game has ever seen. Lee Trevino, Hale Irwin. Again, that list is long. And then we went into a period before the advent of Tiger Woods where, yeah, you had Tom Watson, but I'd put Tom Watson into that prior period with Jack Nicklaus. You had the emergence of Greg Norman, Nick Faldo, and their domination through these periods, Nick Price. But that period, just in terms of the quantity of great players at the top of the game, was just, in my mind, not quite deep enough to qualify for a golden age in their own right. Again, many of those players fell into one or a latter one. And we have to put the Tiger Woods career, the really interesting question here would be, how do you define it when he won his last major in 2019, but he had his fallow years? So for Tiger Woods, I would essentially define it by, and I could be convinced to move it one way or the other, but we know the starting point is 1997. It's just a question of where you end that golden era. 2010? As high as 2012, maybe 13, whatever. Again, that side of it is not quite as defined, because then scandals and injuries and all these other things started to take their hold. He still did what great champions often do, and he still gave us a flash of brilliance at the Tour Championship and then the following spring at the Masters, which was incredible. It was really neat that it happened for many of us during a part of our life that we can clearly remember, and we knew exactly where we were when, as it all happened. So that's again another period, and then we went through I believe kind of a lull, where we were waiting for these new players to start to emerge, and I believe that right now we are sitting now the two tours splitting definitely interrupted where I'm coming from with all of this. Here it is, post-Tiger modern era, 3+ majors since 2013. Rory McIlroy's had 5, Brooks Koepka's had 5, Scottie Scheffler's had 4, Jordan Spieth has had 3. Right? That's where we are right now. So we're starting to get a look at a pattern where we have players that have won multiple majors, just like the big golden age where I said when Giants roamed, that would have been Jack Nicklaus's, which I think of all these different eras that I'm describing to you, the predominant era would have been that one because of the depth of the players at the top of these leaderboards. And I've described that era as a knife fight because it just was so intense, right? Not taking anything away from the others, but the depth of field, even at the top of the leaderboards, even during the eras of when Hogan and Snead and Byron Nelson were trying to beat each other out in the golf course, they just didn't have the same amount of depth. They had a lot of great players, but those players were so special in the game. That's what raised that era up individually. Well, what we're having now is we're having a tremendous amount of depth. And as I was saying to you, yeah, that the current era hit a speed bump when great players from the tours separated. I don't know if that's a rift in terms of, I'm not talking about politics, I'm not talking about tours coming together, not coming together, any of that stuff. I'm talking about the players themselves now. I don't know if that's a rift that can be made up moving forward. In other words, what would it take to do that? It would take Jon Rahm winning another major or two, maybe more. It would take Brooks Koepka getting back into the mix again. It would take Bryson continuing to do his Bryson things. It would take maybe Jordan finding some form again, although I think there's a lot of people that are starting to doubt that we're going to see the magic that we saw in those early years of his tour experience and what he did. So for a lot of reasons, there's, despite the big picture, I'm going to call it the ugliness that took place with just pure competition between the two sides and insults levied back and forth and all that went into that ugliness that I truly hope that we're moving beyond, although it still leaves a lot of big questions unresolved. What I'm saying is I'm hoping we move beyond the mudslinging back and forth, the we're better than you because. We have seen very dramatic ratings increases across 2025. The question is why? I think even though I was vocally against the signature events, I didn't like a field 70, 80 players because golf to me has always been you eat what you kill. 70, 80 players, no cut, increased points. It kind of seemed like a rich get richer. It's easier to hold your position. It has had an impact on the Ryder Cup team because the Ryder Cup points are based upon money won, and money won is more in the signature events, et cetera, et cetera. All of it has a cascading effect. But as we were told it would, which I'll admit I doubted, the people have responded. They have responded to these fields that are top heavy. And the events have delivered. One of the events that was a standout to me, maybe it was because I was up there and I was hosting the world coverage of it, was the Travelers. And while we felt bad for Tommy, the sting of sorrow for Tommy not closing out at the Travelers, of course, is offset by what he did at the Tour Championship. But at the time, and then to have Keegan Bradley, the reigning United States Ryder Cup captain, come back and catch him at the end and win the event, event that he considers his major because he's a New England kid was just mind-blowingly good. It was wildly good entertainment, and we saw so many events that fit that criteria. You know, it's funny because when you think about the Open and Scottie's win at the Open, one of the criticisms of that victory was that it seemed kind of boring. To which, you know, I took a step away from it myself and said, wait a minute. When you have dominance, and if you want dominance, there's another question of the day for us, Dom. Do you want parity or do you want dominance? When you get dominance, you get boring. Again, cast your mind back. Go back to Tiger winning at Pebble Beach by 15. Finishing 12 under par when the next closest, Ernie Els, was +3. Think about that when you were watching it through the shroud of fog and all the rest that was that week. It was boring. Gloriously boring. Because in retrospect, we look back on that now and go, that was one of the greatest major championship performances ever. Right? Then we think about, you know, Hendrick and Phil and their heavyweight bout. You can go back to 1977 in the duel in the sun with Jack Nicklaus and Tom Watson. Again, another heavyweight bout at the time. Those are crazy entertaining. So much fun to watch those kind of matches. But when history looks back on them, they all get bundled together into great major championship wins because ... It's amazing. Dom, any other graphics you wanted to go through as I went on that soliloquy of legends and eras and times?
No. I mean, we could do this for hours. I mean, the only other thing that I had built out that you touched on in our Did You Know today, which I just think is it's another interesting factoid, is just the reality that it may be not debatable anymore that Rory McIlroy is officially the greatest dual tour player in the history of golf. Tiger, as you can see there, if you're looking on the TV side and on the radio side, it's dual tour legends graphic, and there's only 5 players on it that have amassed a lot of PGA Tour wins and also a lot of European Tour wins. Vijay Singh, Greg Norman, and Ernie Els. Neither of those 3 had 20 or more wins on both tours. Rory and Tiger are the only ones to do that. And Tiger had 41 European Tour wins. 33 of those were major championships and WGC events. And to the best of my knowledge, Matt, I don't think Tiger Woods was ever an actual member of the European Tour at any time. I don't think he ever won an Order of Merit or a Race to Dubai because he never took membership there. Rory's been a dual member and has maybe not every year, but as often as he can. I think there was a stretch there where he didn't, but 29 PGA Tour wins and 20 European Tour wins, and I fully anticipate with his age and his health, if he maintains those things, I don't know why he doesn't add to both those totals. Now, he might not end up with 50 and 50, but I think he's going to add to both those numbers, and I just think it's an interesting thing to discuss. I mean, to put it bluntly, would you agree with that statement that he is already like he's alone, right, on the mountain of both tours?
Yeah, because you're looking at Tiger's 41 wins in what? 36 of those, if I remember the math.
33.
33 were either World Golf Championship events or major championships. So they really weren't what was then called European Tour events. They were
and he was
co-sanctioned.
never really a member of the tour either.
So that would bring his net number, even though Rory has some cross events as well, in fairness, but he's a member of that tour, so you could make a different argument there. But yeah, in terms of straddling the tours, it probably is Rory. I mean, that's whole nother historic conversation to have because Seve was the first player who really set out after Tony Jacklin. Tony Jacklin tried it, and it beat him up pretty good. And those were during the days of the kind of Mark McCormick philosophy of to be truly an icon, you have to be a global icon. That's the reason why he brought Arnold Palmer across the pond to compete in the Open, and the concept of the modern Grand Slam between Bob Drum and Arnold Palmer, conceived on an airplane flying over the ocean. So Mr. Palmer would be arguably the first one, I would say, that would definitively fit that criteria. But the first from the at least English side was Tony Jacklin. And Tony Jacklin won majors, won the Open. He also won the U.S. Open. And so that was distinctive, and that meant a great deal. It wore Tony out mentally, physically, emotionally. There's no doubt about that. Not enough that he didn't deserve his entry into the World Golf Hall of Fame, and certainly not enough that he didn't redefine the Ryder Cup as we know it. He doesn't get the credit that he deserves for that, frankly. And we cannot wait next week to share with you the example of exactly what we're talking about. When I say that I like to hear from the players themselves, to hear from Tony Jacklin's words, yeah, we're going to share that with you in just a few days from now in our kind of setup, getting you ready for the Ryder Cup and all that lies in store. But Seve tried to do it. He tried to do the two tours as well, and so that's a whole another conversation. But based upon the number of wins on the PGA Tour, Rory has had more of them than anybody else that tried to traverse both sides of the Atlantic in their playing career. And Rory's continuing to creep up with wins on the DP World Tour as well. And as Dom mentioned, he has more opportunities for the same in the year that remains. And now that he's living primarily just outside of London at Wentworth in the new house that they have there, I wonder if that means he's going to pop up more on the DP World Tour, or will he try to keep essentially the same schedule and just fly across the Atlantic in his big private jet whenever he can? It's one of the advantages of modern travel and having a lot of dough that you've won in an incredibly successful career. So it's fascinating stuff. There's no doubt about that.